Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's podcast, taking care of business today with Franco Terrazzano, who is federal director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Thank you for joining us today, Franco.
Thanks for having me on.
Cool day today in Ottawa. Maybe not weather-wise, but just a very interesting day. Federal budget out. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, it's a bad budget for taxpayers. I mean, all the budget is giving taxpayers is big deficits, more debt, more money wasted on interest charges and higher taxes. I hate to be so direct, but this budget shows that the government doesn't really care about fiscal prudence or helping taxpayers.
Can you talk a little bit about the deficit and the debt and where we're going to be at because of this budget?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the deficit in 2023 is going to be $40 billion. That's $10 billion higher than what they projected only a couple months ago in the recent fiscal update. That's going to drive the debt even higher, $1.2 trillion in debt by the end of the year. We're getting pretty close to the Trudeau government doubling the debt since it took power back in the end of 2015. Now, big deficits, more debt means more money wasted on interest charges. This year, it'll cost $44 billion just to cover the interest charges on the government credit card. And Mario, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but in a few short years, by 2027, interest charges on the debt will cost taxpayers $50 billion.
There's a key that you use the word taxpayers. As one person said to me today, today's deficit is tomorrow's taxes, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, taxes are literally going up almost tomorrow, right? In a couple days, April 1, the carbon tax is going up. In Alberta, in your neck of the woods, Mario, where my family lives, the carbon tax will cost the average family about $847 this year, even after the rebates. That's a couple weeks of groceries for a family of four, but is being taxed away. So we're seeing big deficits. We're seeing bigger debt, more money wasted on interest charges. Of course, we have the carbon tax that's going up right around the corner. And get this, I don't think this government will ever balance the budget. And here's why I say that. We all remember the gaffe when, the budget will balance itself. Of course, that hasn't happened. But in all seriousness, 2015, Trudeau said he would run a few modest deficits, return to balance by 2019. He missed that target by $20 billion even before the pandemic. And now, remember, the government only a couple months ago said that it would run a $4.5 billion surplus in 2027. But this budget shows that the government is going to run a $14 billion deficit that year. So just deficits as far as the eye can see.
What is the impact of all this, Franco, down the road? When we have this level of debt and deficit, what is the impact and consequences for this country, in a few years?
Well, you got to pay the piper. Eventually, it's going to happen, right? When you see a fire starting to soar in the kitchen, you got to put it out right away once you see the smoke, right? We've been down this before, everyone. Remember the big spending, big deficit politicians of the 80s? Well, they kept kicking the can until they couldn't kick the can no more. And what happened in the 90s? You had to see serious cuts. Remember in Saskatchewan, they closed down about 50 or so rural hospitals in the Prairie Province. Look, there is no way that you can get around this. If this keeps going, you have more debt, you'll have higher taxes, and it won't just be taxes on the rich. It'll have to come from just everyday Canadians because the government is spending like crazy. Or you get the interest charges that go through the roof, which I think could be a real concern as interest rates have been going up over the last couple months.
Mm. Now, I guess there's got to be a day of reckoning, right?
There has, but like let's not like mince words right now. I mean, there has been a day of reckoning already for so many families, right? How many families right now are worried about losing their homes as mortgage payments go up? What about the young family who is already just trying to scrape every penny they have so they can get baby formula or diapers, or the young family who's going to have a kid soon who could barely afford a crib? Right? The nearly 4 decades high inflation that we're already experiencing means so much pain for so many people. The people who aren't feeling the pain are those in Ottawa, members of parliament who are about to take their 4th pay raise since the beginning of the pandemic. So Canadians have been struggling. It will get worse if the government continues to spend and tax like crazy. But you know what? The people who aren't feeling it are the people who are making these crazy spending and taxing decisions.
Now, what about the flip side, Franco? Anything positive out of this budget from your standpoint?
Well, that's the hardest question you asked me all day. That's the hardest question I'm going to get. Look, uh, the best thing for taxpayers, which will make me cry in my drink a little bit later tonight, is that the government is going to be increasing the alcohol tax hike by less than what we thought. We thought the alcohol tax was going to be going up by 6.3%, which is outrageous. The government is capping that tax increase, so it's still going up, but it's going up by 2% instead of 6.3%. I mean, that's really the best news for taxpayers. I do have to point out that they are going forward with a GST rebate. So that's good news for some Canadians who get some of their money back. Only a third of Canadians will get that. But you know what? Instead of taking money out of people's left pocket and sprinkling some back in the right pocket, just cut taxes across the board, cut out the middleman, and cut taxes for all Canadians.
All right. Thanks, Franco, for joining us today.
Ciao.
All right, ciao. That was Franco Terrazzano, who is Federal Director of the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's podcast, Taking Care of Business Today. Thanks for joining us.